So hi Tara, welcome to Confounded TV.
Thank you very much, Alistair. Great to be here.
Yes, and I've wanted to have you on the show for quite a long time. Tara is an author and an expert, and she has a PhD, and her specialisation is in imposter syndrome, something which a lot of my listeners will all pretend doesn't happen to them, but we all know it actually does. So I think the key thing is, Tara, is we all have a view of what imposter syndrome is, based on probably a lot of nonsense that we see on LinkedIn and various channels. Could you actually start by telling us what it actually is?
Yes, so imposter syndrome is the secret feeling of being a fraud and not good enough when you're not. And it's the fear on top of that of being found out. And that is the heart of imposter syndrome.
So that's quite interesting. I hadn't thought of the when you're not. So because I always thought you had it regardless of success, or you just feel you're sort of doing this thing, you don't know how you got there, you don't deserve it, was kind of the thing I kind of took away from it. And you're saying, actually, I can have this thing and I can actually be a success, and I can still really badly suffer from this.
Absolutely. If you weren't good enough, if you genuinely weren't good enough, or you felt like that in all areas of your life, we'd call that low self-esteem.
Okay.
And you wouldn't be then a high achiever.
Yes.
So imposter syndrome shows up most in high achievers when they're really trying to stretch themselves or really get something remarkable done. And that's why it's so confusing for people. Because
yes, it's obvious, because if it's low self-esteem is I'm just rubbish at everything, but actually it's high achievers who are saying, I don't know why I think I'm good at I'm being told I'm good at this thing, yes, but I don't really believe that I am.
Definitely, that's it. Because intellectually, logically, you're good enough, but you're just not feeling it on the inside. And so there's this gap in your brain that it creates a lot of confusion.
And is it linked to the fact that some high achievers will be quite open and say, I am a high achiever because of something that happened in my past, or my parents were incredibly poor and I was driven not to be like that, or I was I had trouble in early life, so therefore their drive to, which has made them a high achiever, is not linked to the fact that they've recognized in their brain that they're a high achiever?
It's a sense of not feeling good enough.
Yeah.
And that can come from a challenging childhood, for example. Definitely, that's one of the drivers. But you can also get it if you're somebody who had every possible opportunity and a luxurious childhood. The sense of not feeling good enough, people would automatically assume that you got the job because your dad knows somebody, yes, right? Or so it does go across the board. But that sense of I'm not quite good enough, that my worth depends on what I do, that is the belief that underlies all of imposter syndrome. And that's basically the way our society is set up. It's something that unless you unlearn it as a young child, then you carry it with you as an unconscious belief, and it gets reinforced in everything that we do.
So are you saying that we actually learn this as a child and we just take it with us? It's not something like, oh my goodness, I've sold to Google for 100 million and people are now saying I was the best founder in the world. I have no idea, and I don't really believe it myself. Are you saying actually it isn't when you get I'll call it over promoted. That's what always happened to me in the past. When you get over promoted and you feel you shouldn't be doing it, or is it actually something you've learned way, way, way before as a child in school or whatever?
It's an unconscious belief, so most people aren't aware of it. Some people are definitely aware of it. Oh, I don't feel like I'm good enough. Most people, it's unconscious. Yeah. So as you're a young child, when you're a baby, you don't have a sense of I, a sense of myself. Yeah. And actually, that takes quite a little while to actually generate that sense of I. And so as you're starting to be socialized, if you think of a 2-year-old, big fight with the world, there is this part where you don't have a distinction between yourself and your actions.
Mm-hmm. Yes, and that's what everybody call the furniture. Yeah.
Yeah. So when you get told don't do that, which could be, for good reasons, like running out in front of a car. Oh, stop, hold back, or don't do that, or that's bad. We take it as I'm bad. Right? So if I do something good, I am good. If I do something bad, I am bad. So that's the fundamental idea that your worth as a human being is conditional. And unless you get explicitly taught that as a young child, when you develop that sense of I, separation between worth and behavior, then we just carry it forwards.
And then it just disappears when you're a teenager, I'm guessing, a lot of the time. And it pops back out when you find yourself as a grown-up. Would that be fair?
It will show up in different ways with at all stages. That sense of it's a sense of not feeling good enough. And with high achievers, it's not in everything, right? It often just shows up in one particular area of their lives or area of their work.
This is a strange thing, isn't it? Because I've spoken to many founders over the years, and I think when you've had a few beers, some of them will be more honest than others. And I actually believe there's a little bit of self-doubt, and then there's this thing underneath it. So I think there's a little bit of self-doubt, like, how did I get here? Like, I spoke to one who raised 5 million the other day, and he's kind of like, it was just an idea, but I don't think he's got any doubts in his ability to do it. He doesn't really feel like imposter syndrome. It's just like, oh shit. And then I've met others who really are doing it and have been honest and said, I don't understand. I'm doing this thing. I feel like I'm going through the motions, but I don't deserve to be here. I don't understand how I'm here, and I'm not really sure I can do it. And this is despite having like 200 staff.
Yes.
And that is terrifying. Well, that's not terrifying. That's harsh. It's weird though that they kind of wake up, go, oh my God, get in the car, drive to the office now. Hey guys, come on, let's get this thing done. And it's kind of like inside they're sitting there going, help, right? And that's 200 staff.
That's it, and bigger and bigger and bigger. I work with corporate executives and founders and
thousands of tens of thousands of staff.
Global group CEOs. I mean, it's something that as you get to that higher levels, it shows up more, because imposter syndrome comes and goes.
But it must be worse the bigger because almost like it must be worse the bigger the responsibility. By definition, if I run BP, I wake up one day and I'm 45 and I'm running BP. You've got to think it's a dream some days, or how did that happen, or I can't do this, right? If you imagine, and here we'll come back to this good question I've got in my head here. That must just be the case, that you think, why am I running 45,000 people in a $100 billion business, or whatever the crazy numbers are? Because how did you get there? Because the time passes so fast. There must be this time thing where time passes fast when you're busy, and high achievers work really hard, have higher work rates, because if they're not working, they're cycling or going to the gym or something. Yeah. And then they just get there really quickly. And for the sake of people who aren't watching on YouTube, I'm doing my hand in a kind of up and to the right kind of graph way. So really fast they get there. What feels really fast, actually 20 years, wake up one day running BP. Oh shit. That must happen a lot, yes. I'm guessing.
Absolutely. So there's two kind of effects in there. One is if you're climbing a mountain, right, and you just next step.
Yes, that's much better. Right? Yes, that's what I meant.
And then you stop and look around and you go, wow, look at that.
Yes.
Right? That view, that's incredible. And gosh, I can't believe that I've got to this level. And that doesn't have to be about doubting yourself, right? That can just be, wow, isn't this amazing? Wow, I never would have thought that from back there in the valley there would have been this view up here. How it's exhilarating, because success and really stretching and challenging yourself is exhilarating, and you think, gosh, this is great. It's when you start making it mean something about you, right? Oh my gosh, do I deserve this? Maybe I don't deserve this. Yes. Maybe it was a fluke. Maybe I just got lucky, and maybe people are going to find me out. It was just a series of rolls of the dice.
Which it was.
And somebody's going to find out. And that's
the reality
is,
it is. I mean, when you look at this as a sort of from an actual education point of view, my amateur point of view would say it is a bunch of rolls of the dice, right? But is it?
Yes.
Do you think it is? I mean, from the people you've
No,
spoken to?
so people think it's a roll of the dice, that it's nothing to do with them, because they discount their own talents and their own skills. They say,
Okay.
oh, everyone could have done it. Oh, I just got lucky, right? So that might just sound polite or humble or something like that. But the fact is, they have worked, and intellectually they know that they have worked damn hard, they have worked and really put in the effort. They have got natural talents, natural skills. They have learned some really good ways of either analyzing things or dealing with people. They have been particularly creative, so they have genuinely achieved it, because you don't get to be the head of a large company without having some ability.
Is that, do you see that it appears more in people who don't have an actual expertise than those who do? Like, if I'm the CTO, I can do coding. I've come from a coding background, I can do that. If I'm the CEO, the chances are I have not got that skill. I have not got the accountancy skills. I've not got the HR skills. Does it appear more in the generalists who tend to run things than the people who are like the CTO of BP, for example?
It makes no difference.
Oh, wow. Okay. I wasn't expecting that. I was expecting, generalists are a bit vague. So it doesn't make any difference.
No, because so one of the classic imposter syndrome behaviors is perfectionism.
Okay.
And one form of perfectionism is knowledge perfectionism. I must be right. I must know everything. So you can be highly technically skilled, CTO, CEO with a tech background, and still feel like, I don't know everything. And what you do then is you would over prepare for any kind of meeting, presentation, something like that. So you put way more into it than it warrants. You'd work far harder to make sure that you have every single answer, just in case someone asks, so that they won't catch you out, so that you won't be made wrong.
Protect your shell.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's like you're an egg in a delicate shell. You got to put the armor up in case somebody pokes a hole in it.
That's it.
Wow. Yeah. Okay. So one of the things we're going to talk about is, how do you spot it? And off the back of that, I would like to talk about, is it a good or a bad thing in the workplace? So let's go with, how do you spot it first? This is for yourself, not for how do you spot it in other people.
Yeah, so trying to spot it in other people, just saying that, is going to be very difficult, because people hide it. Secrecy is one part of it. And so many of my clients say that everyone around them is telling them how competent they are, right? How competent they are. So it's a case of more like you're disregarding that feedback. So how do you spot it in yourself? There'll be three typical ways. One is in terms of the stress itself, your physiology. So the stress of imposter syndrome can trigger the fight, flight, and freeze response. And so that is, the physiological, your blood pressure changes, you get less blood flow to your thinking part of your brain, and you can't, your mind goes blank, you literally can't think, or you're not making those good decisions. So there's things like that in there. So you'll feel you're off your game, or you'll feel you're more reactive. The emotions that go with that would be you get angry more easily, or more impatient. You get anxiety, or you can't sleep at night, dread Monday morning, or you get this sense of overwhelm, and that's when you go into the freeze state, and it's procrastination and things like that. So that's all the physiology. So some people just notice that part of it. They just notice that, I'm very stressed. This is hard work. This is harder than it should be. That's the feeling. The other part is the imposter syndrome behaviors. And that's like the perfectionism I mentioned, the over preparing. There is
covering your tracks for not feeling like you're very good, basically.
Yeah, So that's the kind of thing. You might avoid situations,
Yeah. Yeah.
avoid promotions. You know, I was talking to one client, and he, you know, business advisor, and he said his imposter syndrome cost him £100,000 a year for the last 3 years because he hadn't gone for particular contracts because he didn't feel he was good enough. Another would be didn't go for a particular promotion because he couldn't tick every single box, rather than just be great at all of it. So, you know, it has a very real consequence in that sense.
So who gets it? Is there a type?
There is no
Big
type.
question there.
It's a great question.
Well, yes, there's a few answers to this question. Let's start with just who gets it.
Who gets it? So 70% of high achievers experience imposter syndrome at some point in their lives.
That they recognize?
That they recognize.
Okay.
That's so a very good catch, because there are people who are in denial. Right? They would never admit to it. There are people who don't recognize it in themselves, and so they're oblivious to it. And there are people who avoid a particular situation that might trigger their imposter syndrome.
Okay. So this is when, as an example, a situation where that might occur.
So a high challenge situation can be starting a business, getting some investment, getting a promotion, or getting a big project. So something like that. Low support can be simply that you don't have anyone like a mentor or someone that you can go to talk things through. Or, you know, an extreme version of low support is when you're in a toxic work environment.
Yes.
So you've got a bully in the workplace and things like that. And imposter syndrome tends to come and go when you've got that combination of high challenge and low support. I wouldn't necessarily say it shows up in how you interact with the people around you.
Okay.
Because it's not that easy to spot.
Okay.
There is a sense of isolation with imposter syndrome. Because everyone keeps it a secret, when you feel it, you think it's just you. Nobody else gets this. Or if they did, they don't get it nearly as badly as me. So there's a big feeling of isolation, and it's inexplicable. It's inexplicable. You don't really understand why. So you try and think, well, why am I feeling? What's different about me? And then people can start creating all sorts of stories. They're looking for this cause and effect. You know, I'm feeling bad. Why am I feeling bad? And they're looking for something obvious. It's often something outside of them. Maybe I didn't get a good enough education. All of these have got this qualification. I haven't. Maybe I need to get more qualifications. Maybe I have the wrong accent. Maybe I've come from the wrong part of the country or the wrong part of the world. So we're looking for these logical reasons for it. We're not looking inside at the fundamental cause of it. We're just trying to connect the dots. So all of that just increases that sense of isolation, and that it must be just me. And then from that, you can conclude, oh, there must be something wrong with me. Maybe I'm not good enough. Maybe I don't belong at this level.
This is
and it
quite
can end
interesting.
careers.
There must be loads of airtime talked about, you know, coming from the north, or whatever, going to the wrong school. You can see it's constant. I mean, actually, if you think of, there's like a gentle banging drum in the background about all these things, and that's actually maybe people talking about, because they're trying to say, you know, I got here, but I shouldn't be here, despite my school, despite these things. There's a great guy called Zuby on Twitter who says everyone who talks about failing to achieve and blaming other people in the Western world, especially in Europe, he says it's just rubbish. He said, because everyone's got an opportunity here compared to in every other country where it's really hard. And I think he even talked about it's people looking inwards instead of just going, just get on with it. So what you're saying there is that you've got imposter syndrome, you may or may not recognize it, and then you cast around for the reasons. So even though you've achieved something, you then cast around for reasons to justify how you got there, because you don't think you should be there.
Yes.
You know, I'm too Scottish to run this company.
That's it. Yes.
You know, that is amazing. So people come to you and say, when is it that people come to you and say, well, how do they so they recognize there's something amiss? How do they find you? Because unless you've heard about imposter syndrome, because it's talked about endlessly in places like TechCrunch and tech stuff, but it's not talked about, I'd imagine, in Printing Weekly, or Tara Monthly. How do people find out they've got it? How do they find what it is, and how do they come to you?
So it's an educational thing. A lot of my work, my posts on LinkedIn, my blogs are educational part. This is what imposter syndrome is. This is what it looks like. This is the cause of it. This is what you can do about it. And so a lot of the time people come to me and they say, yeah, I really resonate. I completely recognize myself, and I can see, and I thought you were writing about me. So
wow. So you're leaving a trail of breadcrumbs basically across LinkedIn, right? And people come across it however they do, and they go, "Oh, that's me," and then they start looking more at what you've written. So in your book, you talk about the coach's guide to imposter syndrome. Do you want to tell us about the book and what that does?
Yeah, so the book is called Unmasking, and it came out in early 2018. And it's, as you say, it's the coach's guide to imposter syndrome, because what I wanted to do was educate more and more people.
Yes, it's not
about
fixing the
syndrome.
person, it's about let's educate.
Exactly. So people are aware of it, and coaches, and that's also mentors and counselors, people like that.
Also, people in HR should be able to recognize this.
Absolutely.
People come and saying, "I feel really bad at work," especially at the moment. As HR have a responsibility to look after people, and if they recognize this, they can probably help the business as a whole.
Exactly. Yes. So that the reason I wrote it was this educational thing, and to help coaches deal with it, because if somebody comes to you and saying, it's really weird, but I'm not feeling very confident, then it's easy for a coach to start working on building up their confidence. Right? But imposter syndrome isn't a confidence issue. And these people are confident because they're competent in what they do. It's just they're not feeling it. And that's the difference. So it's getting to that heart of it. So my goal for my book was that more people could find out, and more people could know what to do and what not to do when helping people. So a multiplier effect.
It's really quite interesting, isn't it? Because one thing you said there, it's confident. So, this is just it's like a therapy session for me for free. Because confidence is not my issue, right? That's it. But inside, I have constant. This when I first read about this, how many years ago, I was like, oh yes, and that's why. And I'm too open, right? I wear my heart on my sleeve. So I go to the pub with other founders and say, I got this thing where I don't even understand how I'm here. I don't really know. I don't think I've got the skills to do this and all the blah, blah, blah. And then because I'm so open, and some people say, yeah, that's me, especially the English are even more reserved than the Scots, right? So I get a little glimmer into it, and then I'd poke and over. But everyone I know like that is incredibly confident. Just raise 400 at 4 and let's do these amazing things and change the world. But I always link the imposter syndrome to effectively an inner lack of confidence. But it's not actually like that. You've got the confidence for good reason, because you've done things. Some people may overconfident. But what you're saying is internally, this isn't what's the word I'm looking for? And it's not a lack of confidence internally. It's a different system at play.
Yes.
Actually, a different part of your brain is doing a different thing. It's not confidence in the outside, lack of confidence in the inside. It's actually a broken bit of you inside saying, I shouldn't be doing this.
Yes, I wouldn't quite go so far as to say people are broken with it.
Okay. It's normal, sorry. It's a normal thing that you need to address and understand. Let's put it that way.
Well, so one of the things to understand about imposter syndrome is that it's not you. Right?
Yes.
And that's a really, really important thing. And if we go into the neuroscience and of how this manifests, there's a part of the brain called the amygdala, which is kind of behind the eyes, in front of the ears. There's two. And the amygdala is like a virus checker. Right? So all of the information that you come in through all of your senses and your thoughts passes first through the amygdala, because it's looking out for danger. So it's doing what it's supposed to do. And look out, there's a tiger behind that. I can hear the growl. And, it's a very primitive system that's designed to keep you safe. And so that's always filtering the information. And then there are certain things that will trigger the amygdala. So the belief of I'm not good enough can trigger the amygdala. So it might be, because it's often in certain situations, maybe it's doing a presentation to a particular client, maybe it's publishing your work, or doing a podcast, or it can be anything like that. And if the amygdala gets triggered, then it puts you into the fight, flight, and freeze response. And that's when your blood pressure changes, your blood distribution changes, and you can't think so
brain
clearly.
Goes foggy.
Brain fog and all of that. Yeah, that's exactly it. So that's really how imposter syndrome kind of manifests. And then we look at our own behavior and go, what's wrong with me? We start judging ourselves for it. And then that's then really the problem. And the conclusion that we make is, I'm not good enough. I can't be good enough if I'm, I've done thousands of these presentations. Why am I still freaking out about it? Why am I not speaking up in this particular meeting? I know the answers and I'm not making the contribution that I want to. And you start beating yourself up for it. I'm not good enough. I've had people who talk about giving themselves a pep talk, right? Trying to, like, the confidence thing. I'm not feeling good, so just before I'll give myself a pep talk. Okay, well, what does that look like? Well, I tell myself I'm being stupid and I should pull my socks up and pull myself together. That's not a pep talk. That's a beating yourself up talk.
My God, is that not normal? Honestly, is that's okay? Oh wow, okay. I thought that was completely normal. Going to do a presentation, stand outside for 5 minutes, shouting at yourself internally, obviously, and then go and do a presentation, having given yourself the sort of the big talking to. Is that not normal? That's amazing.
It's very, 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 very common, and it's all down to us trying to make sense of how come I'm achieving so well and I'm not feeling successful. I'm not feeling like a success. So yeah.
That's quite interesting, isn't it? It must be awful doing this in the public eye. I mean, do you have anyone who's in the public eye? Because that must be worse. I mean, I say in the public eye, I don't mean 4,000 people LinkedIn. I mean 400,000 people on decent YouTube channels. I mean, because it must be even worse the bigger it gets, which is why, of course, personalities on TV used to break down, right? Because they must be. I don't know if you saw the thing with George Michael. I mean, the other night, did you see that?
I didn't know.
Oh, this absolutely fabulous documentary about George Michael. And basically, you should definitely watch this, right? So he hid behind his leather jacket and his glasses all those years, partly because he was hiding the fact he was gay, but then he didn't believe he was good enough. And the only time he did is when he went on stage. Like, he literally was trying to get caught with the police. He was literally trying to destroy himself because he didn't believe he deserved all the adulation and respect.
Yes.
And of course, when it's like on steroids, when you're one of the most famous people in the world. And it seemed to me, watching it the other night, I was thinking of you in this podcast, thinking, that's what he was suffering from. Like, why should he be here? Because also Andrew originally was the talented one, right? Okay. So when they did Wham, Andrew wrote the songs, Andrew did the stuff, Andrew did, and he was shy and inward and just tried to be a mini me, right, with Andrew. And then of course he did his own stuff and he took off. And then his support, his rock, was gone because he went from Wham when he had Andrew to, and honestly, I was watching the whole thing going, this is just grade A imposter syndrome all day long, and like obviously led to his death.
Yes, and in extreme situations, it can lead to that. It can lead to burnout. It can lead to people ending their careers. Just you're walking away from the businesses on they're at a certain level, and yet you do see it in celebrities. It's quite easy to see. In fact, Meryl Streep, right, the actress who has won more awards than anyone else in history, has talked about her own imposter syndrome and saying when she's been offered a new part, saying, well, why would anyone want to come and see me?
Bloody hell. So it doesn't matter.
No, Albert Einstein mentioned it. Neil Armstrong, who walked on the moon. Why do I deserve to be in this group of august company? Huh? So it's so common that that's what surprises me more than anything, is how something can be so common and at the same time so secret.
Because it's a weakness, because I guess a lot of it is a weakness. People don't like, it's getting better, right? People didn't like talking about weaknesses, but it's getting a lot better in the last decade.
Definitely. It's definitely improving, and people assume it's a weakness. Right? And I think that's it. That they make it mean something about them. Maybe I'm not good enough. I must be flawed. It must be a character defect.
It goes back round to, if I think this is a weakness, it's because I'm not good enough.
Yes. So it reinforces it. But imposter syndrome is like having a nail in your shoe, right? You walk along, it's painful. You can try and ignore it. It's not going to go away.
Yeah.
And it'll keep coming back. The more you try to put pressure on it, go faster, go further.
You're going to have to stop and reassess the shoe.
Exactly. Yeah. So the solution, when you see it as the shoe, it's really obvious. You take the nail out. Right? With imposter syndrome, you've got this pain, this stress, this discomfort, but you can't see anything obvious for it. You can't explain it very well. So you think it must be you. You think the nail is you. And so you don't even look for a solution. You're just trying to hide. You're just trying to hide it.
Yes, that makes sense. The nail doesn't exist because it's just you. And then when you identify the nail does exist, then you can address it. Like a lot of mental issues, really. It's just you until you identify that it's not actually just you, and there's something you can do about it.
Yes.
So how do you go about? What can you do about it?
Yes, that's the question.
The obvious next question. I've got a nail. Help.
Well, the very first part is, like you said, about the education, knowing about it and knowing that it's not you. It's a nail. It's something external to you. It's a belief that you never unlearned, right? And beliefs can be unlearned. So that then you can manage imposter syndrome. So this is without taking the nail out. You can work with your nervous system and work with ways of calming your nervous system. That's going to help you have less extreme reactions to the stress of it. So that's going to be useful. And the other part is to get support. So that would be someone to talk things through with. And support can even be logistical support, in terms of organizing your life and getting someone in to do the chores, just so that you've got more time and less stress and you're more able to manage. So the getting calm and getting more support is how you can manage imposter syndrome. And then the ultimate way to get rid of it is to change that belief.
Yeah.
There are systematic ways that you can change the belief and make it so it doesn't trigger that amygdala in your brain that is looking out for the danger, so that the things that you previously labeled as danger aren't danger. So you can see it's not about standing in front of the mirror like Superman and saying, I am good enough.
I'm all right, thank you. I'm sorted now. Yeah.
Yeah, doesn't work because your amygdala's still got it, right? You have to actually do work that actually works through the way that the brain works and the way the brain is designed to work. And so what happens when you get rid of it is then the confidence, internal, how you're feeling is effortless. It's like you forget to doubt yourself.
Yes, it's not like you need more confidence to fix the thing at the bottom. What you just need is like the balance in the middle, right? So I think a lot of people probably hide this fact with more confidence. I don't feel confident, so therefore I'll be more confident on the outside. So actually what you don't need is that. You can just bring that back because you've addressed the issue. So I am just me. I can go and do this podcast. I'm quite happy because I no longer stress and worry about the responsibility on the guest. That it becomes less of a guilt and more of a fact. Like if you come on, you will get this, I will get that, and we'll have a great time.
Yeah.
And you just almost like you neuter the thing.
Yes, exactly. And when you turn down that noise and distraction of the double tracking of imposter syndrome, when you turn all that down, what emerges is all your natural talents and stress. You start doing a podcast because it's a lot of fun.
Well, it is anyway.
Yeah, because it's a positive and business development way of.
But you can see across all specters of business sectors and all roles. I could see how if you take away whether you're fixing it with overconfidence or fixing it with over analyzing or over present preparation or over all these things are just grinding you down slowly, right?
Yeah.
Whether in the back of your mind, that's what they're doing. Energy, brain power, brain time. And what you're saying is you start to address that nail.
Yes.
That takes away the sort of gulf between the two ends. One end is your over prep or over confidence that you're producing, and the other is your anxiety around it. And you sort of bring them together, so you're just in a nice sort of state of flow, really,
That's it.
without the kind of wave of the roller coaster that goes with it. Would that be a good assumption?
That's a great way of putting it. And certainly that roller coaster, what happens with that roller coaster is that it becomes shallower roller coaster.
Mm-hmm.
So you don't get so obsessed with the highs, right? You enjoy them without making you a little bit crazy, and then you don't get so dragged down by the lows. So it's building your resilience, and that's what human beings are naturally resilient. Like that's our adaptability is one of our greatest features, and the more we can clear that distraction from our mind of imposter syndrome, the more resilient and capable we're going to be, and basically the more we're going to enjoy things. We're going to enjoy the success, right? Enjoy the view at the top of the mountain and go, wow, isn't this amazing?
Because a lot of people don't enjoy where they are. They can have raised money, or they've built their business, or they've done really well. They're a partner at a legal firm, And I know people who have, to the average person, I mean, including me, I look at them and think, that's awesome, well done. But they're not enjoying themselves. In fact, they're desperate to get out, which is why you see all these high achievers bailing out to go walk to Kathmandu and stuff, because actually they're running away from it.
Yes.
Yeah, and I think
exactly it.
That's the saddest thing. I mean, so I've got to ask. I want to ask you how people can actually get in touch with you. But before I do, I've got to ask, because does Zoom has the last 18 months changed anything about people's behavior who have got this? Because now you don't have to be face to face. You've only got to do Zoom for however many hours a day, or not at all if you're really lucky. Has that impacted people's behavior, people's response to having this? Or people who who you've been treating and talking to who have got it,
Yes.
have they found it easier or harder?
So it's a bit of both.
Okay.
So for people for whom the presentations and being in the spotlight is the most difficult thing, then many of them find that the distance by not being there in person makes it a little bit easier.
Okay, that's interesting. Yeah.
So you can say this is part of that hiding part of it. Hiding can be not speaking up. Hiding can be, literally being more distant. What happens with Zoom is, particularly when you're in a meeting, you're always there, right? There's always that little square with you, and you can't even hide it from yourself. You can't hide it from yourself unless you don't look at your own screen. And that can make some people feel even more put on the spot, even more like somebody is going to catch them out. Because if you're in a meeting, right, somebody speaks, everybody's looking at that person who's speaking. In a Zoom meeting, everybody's still there on the screen, so everybody's seeing everybody's reaction the whole time. So people feel more under the microscope and more vulnerable to being caught out. So that's what I've seen in my clients. So it has changed things. Some people are feeling good about the space that they're getting because they're not having to commute. They've got a good space at home to work. And other people are feeling it very stressful. In terms of the nervous system in the brain, what happens is that we regulate our nervous system by the other people around us. So like if you were like a group of cavemen in a cave, and one of them jumped and went, oh, then
Everyone
everybody
jumps. Here
would
comes
look,
the saber-toothed tiger, guys. Yeah.
Exactly. So we're
Yeah.
kind of like an external extension of our own nervous system, right?
Yeah.
We've got bigger alert. And the opposite happens when you're with someone who's calm and relaxed and playful or laughing or something like that. And it tends to calm and relax you because they're behaviors that are, there's not a tiger in the room.
Yeah. Yeah.
They're safety behaviors. So we calm each other down, or we can stir each other up by our own nervous system. We get far less cues from other people when we're on Zoom. So if you're in a meeting, your brain would be picking up everybody's body language, every little twitch or eyebrow raise, even if you're not delivering,
Yes.
or every little breath and sigh, because you don't get that with the Zoom meeting. People are like this big, you can see them, so you can't see the micro expressions. You can't.
You can't see their fingers on the desk, the way they tap the phone, or the way the pen starts twitching through their hand. It's all that stuff that's missing, isn't it?
Yes, it's that kind of stuff, and because there's so much noise distraction, you can't hear, the change in breathing patterns. There are all these clues that you get from people around you. So being isolated in terms of being away from people like that is more stressful for the nervous system.
So if people feel they have this and they want to have a conversation, buy your book, try and understand it, where's the best place for them to start to reach out to you?
Okay, so the book is on Amazon, Unmasking. My website is completesuccess.co.uk, and I'm also on LinkedIn. So
and you're I've seen a lot of your LinkedIn stuff. It's really good. Yeah, gets a lot of interaction as everybody goes, oh, that's me.
Well, it's interesting because some do and some don't. A lot of people would never put that on a public forum. And in fact, what I do with my clients is on LinkedIn, I never comment on their posts, like their posts, make any kind of
course, yeah.
Because my tagline says it includes imposter syndrome specialists, so they don't want to have an imposter syndrome. Congratulations on your new job, how great. No, I send them a private message. I don't do anything public.
Oh, that's interesting. People still not confident. You've helped me fix my anxiety issues around my performance, but still, please don't comment on that on LinkedIn, because I would be admitting what I perceive to be a weakness, which isn't a weakness, which we discussed earlier.
Well, they feel comfortable in themselves, but not everybody knows that it's not a weakness. Everyone still treats it as a weakness. So there's this stigma that's going to be around for, I'd imagine, quite some time.
Oh, it'll be our lifetimes easily.
Yeah, and it's ridiculous because this is 70% are aware of it, and that's men and women equally. There's no
the weakness thing isn't just imposter. The weakness thing is this weird business thing that you've got to be vulnerable. You've got to be the Brad Pitt of bosses. You've got to be the champion. You got to be this invincible, tough-skinned, and part of that crap comes from things like Dragon's Den. This nonsense shouting match of like, oh, well, if you think that, you're rubbish. Off you go, Mr. Trunky. 100 million Trunky sales later. So on that note, if you think you have any of the characteristics of imposter syndrome and you would like to talk to somebody about it, completesuccess.co.uk. Tara, thank you for being on the show. It's been absolutely fascinating. Thank you very much.
Great stuff. Loved it. Thanks.